Welcome. My name is Rich Stolz. I'm the Executive Director of One America. I remembered earlier today that this is the anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. It's important to remember that because he spoke of the beloved community. And tonight, we are the beloved community out at a party. Together. I wanted to talk a little bit about my own mother, reflecting on Hollis' story. Well, this has been a year of many triumphs that we'll celebrate in a moment. It has also been a year of challenges and loss. My mother was a courageous force. As a child, she clung to my grandmother's back as they fled the war in North Korea for the South as refugees. When my parents separated when I was very young, soon after they brought me here, she managed to raise me alone. And when I helped explain to her what kind of cancer she had, she refused treatment of any kind, asking only for morphine when necessary to manage the pain. She passed away just before the new year. There was a time during and after college when I helped pay the mortgage on our house. Hard to imagine how I did that as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. She wound up entering the workforce as a middle-aged woman with a strong Korean accent and limited skills. First, she worked in airport food service, and while she liked the work, she couldn't stomach the disrespect. That lasted a couple of months. She tried McDonald's next, but with her pride and temper and her pragmatism, weighing what she was earning and spending just going to work, that only lasted a few days. We wound up selling our house. I know it mystified my mother that I didn't take my Stanford degree and make more money. I know she thought that being a good firstborn Korean son, actually only son, I'd take the path most likely to support her. She never understood how it came to pass that I was door knocking in Baltimore public housing, or organizing coalitions of African American churches and disability advocates in Alabama, or managing massive campaigns for comprehensive immigration reform in DC. 1 year ago, when I received President Obama's Champion of Change Award, on Cesar Chavez's, on his anniversary, and met with President Obama in the Oval Office, I think she was actually finally proud of the work I was doing. Although being a Tiger mother, it basically merited a simple nod. But I was driven to this work and ultimately to One America because of what she taught me about being an immigrant, a sojourner, a stranger. In a short journal she wrote for me, she described her experience as an immigrant in this way. Because I felt I could manage to be an American wife, I decided to come. All the time I felt I had a cloud over my head. I didn't know what I was getting into. Her experiences with discrimination shattered her trust in people. She never found her place in this country, and that led to isolation. We never did go back to Korea all my growing up, because I think if we had, she would have stayed there. But she knew I was an American, and she placed me before all else. Sometimes I wonder how things might have been different if there was an organization like One America where we lived. Would she have seen the kind of community visible here tonight and realized that diverse individuals and communities can come together to make the world a more just place, a more welcoming place, a place where every person, irrespective of their heritage, accent, or ethnicity, could thrive? Would she have found her place? Would she have heard in her heart that in this nation of immigration, every person, by virtue of their human dignity, their aspirations for themselves and their children, that we all belong? Tonight, community members, labor leaders, business leaders, elected officials, concerned and empowered One Americans, We all belong here. We all belong here together. Many talk about the date 2040, when demographers expect the United States to become a majority-minority nation. That's an important date, it's an important fact, but more important isn't whether the date is coming, it's the kind of society we'll create between now and then. Our task is to shape a future that fully embraces our diversity and the potential of every person, that equips all of our children to succeed, and that closes the divides, cultural, ethnic, and income, that alienate the disenfranchised, weaken our economy, and harm our democracy. In the last 6 months alone, we've demonstrated what we can do together. We've kept the fight for just and humane immigration reform alive. It's no longer a question of whether we'll see immigration reform pass. It's now a question of when. Yet that doesn't take away the urgency of our cause. When America's leaders, members, and allies are pushing hard for reform now, because we know that every day without reform is a day where families continue to be torn apart, when real human talent is wasted and economic opportunities are lost. This week, there were women fasting, members of organizations across the state of Washington, from Seattle to Spokane. The folks that have participated with We Belong Together, can you rise? As they fought, and many of them got arrested last November, a broad coalition of faith leaders, business leaders, came together through the Washington Compact, and they began the hard work of engaging Republicans on their own turf to move immigration reform. The Washington Compact, can you rise? And community leaders across the state, in Spokane, in Vancouver, in Wenatchee, Mount Vernon, Yakima, they actually came here tonight. Will you rise? And with our congressional leaders, with our senators, Senator Murray in particular, and the Senate, members of Congress, Congressman Smith here tonight, with a table here tonight, we've been working hard, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, to make sure the message for immigration reform remains strong, because we're not giving up. And here in Washington State, passionate organizing and a change of heart in the Washington legislature demonstrated to the nation that where Congress has failed to act, states can find meaningful compromise. And one of the major highlights of this last legislative session, you know it's coming, our elected leaders in Olympia passed and the governor signed the Washington State DREAM Act, now called the Real Hope Act, into law. Will the dreamers rise? Special thanks to the legislators that led, to Speaker Chop, to Orlando Cano, both a Republican and Democrat that came together to make the dream a reality, and to the broad coalition of organizations across the state that worked hard all over Olympia and across the state to make the DREAM Act a reality. Thank you. But the DREAM Act was part of a broader educational agenda to close the opportunity gap in Washington State. our system is failing too many children, especially children of color. Last year, the legislature increased funding for bilingual children in the schools, enacted the Seal of Biliteracy to reward biliteracy among immigrant and refugee students, and established a task force to build a more diverse and supported teaching workforce ready to handle the changing demographics in our school system. Will the Roadmap Project folks and the English Language Learning Work Group stand up? The 7 school districts and the community colleges of South King County, with allies and partners across the state, with parents, with teachers and students, we fought together to make that agenda come true. And in the closing days of the legislative session, the legislature increased funding for the Washington New Americans program, addressing the dreams and aspirations of immigrants seeking to become citizens. This is the quintessential story that sets our nation apart, that brings diverse cultures and communities together and makes our nation great, the experience of naturalization. Speaker Chop, I'm going to quote you again, has said on several occasions that he wants to make Washington America's most welcoming state. We're on our way. If you volunteered for the Washington New Americans program, if you've participated in W&A, please stand. If you're an immigration attorney, please stand. If you're a naturalized American, please stand. And last December, in a brave act, the King County Council passed an ordinance intended to slow the rate at which deportations are tearing families apart. From now on, residents of King County may not be held for immigration detention officers unless they have been convicted of a serious crime. And in February, the King County Council passed yet another groundbreaking ordinance when they created a new low-income fare. And if we succeed in passing Proposition 1 on April 22nd, the fare will go down to $1.25, and the county's voters will have protected our public transportation system, on which so many of us rely on to meet basic needs. So let's hear it for the King County Council members. Let's hear it for immigrant rights allies in King County. Let's hear it for our transit justice allies in King County. Because we are having an impact. And only last month, in a controversial decision, the City Council agreed with immigrant and refugee drivers, including those who work for transportation network companies, those who own or lease a cab or for-hire vehicle. They voted to create a more level, rational, regulatory playing field and to place temporary caps on so-called transportation network companies to give the existing industries a chance to catch up. Thank you. The City Council members, the taxi and for-hire companies, and their drivers who worked hard to make that happen. Everyone who supports One America, stand up. We are One America. We are community organizations, businesses, unions, members, donors, supporters. Together, we're building something truly powerful. Ours is a progressive and inclusive vision grounded in our multi-ethnic, multi-generational membership and leadership in every corner of Washington State, where everyone belongs, where everyone can thrive. We will bring our voice to bear on the major debates of our time, where immigrant refugees and their communities have a real but often overlooked stake in the outcome. We'll ensure that immigrant parents and providers are full partners in efforts to bring a visionary universal preschool system to Seattle. In the months ahead, we'll work together to bring relief to our families and our economy burdened by our broken immigration system. We'll ensure that immigrant workers and business owners have a voice in a deliberate debate over the $15 minimum wage in Seattle. We'll bring the voices of our communities to bear as full partners in efforts to advance environmental justice in Washington State. With so much possibility, let's keep building on what we've created. Together, let's turn our aspirations into reality.